The cold wind moved through the trees. Leaves rustled under Jake's boots as he walked deeper into the alien forest. The sky above was a dark purple, full of distant stars. His campfire was still glowing behind him, but something had caught his attention. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the forest animals. It was something different. His dog, Rex, had stopped walking. The big black dog stood still, ears up, eyes locked toward a group of thick bushes. A sound came again, a soft, broken sound like someone crying or dying. Jake moved forward slowly, his hand on the old rifle hanging from his back. Rex didn't bark. He just growled low. The sound was close now. Then he heard it clearly. A whimper. It wasn't a human sound. It was small, broken, and full of pain. Jake pushed the branches aside and saw her. She lay in the dirt, half covered in torn cloth and mud. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly like moonlight. Her hair was silver and dirty, sticking to her face. She was very thin, like she hadn't eaten in days. Her arms had cuts and one of her legs was twisted wrong. Her lips moved, but no words came out. She wasn't dangerous. She was dying. Jake knelt beside her. Rex slowly walked over and sniffed her, then lay down beside her, pressing his warm body close to hers. The alien girl flinched at first, but then relaxed. "Who are you?" Jake whispered. She didn't answer. Her eyes were open but blank. Her breathing was slow. Too slow. Jake knew he had two choices: leave her and walk away, or save her, even if it meant danger. He sighed and took off his jacket. Carefully, he wrapped it around the girl's small body. She was so light. She didn't move as he lifted her into his arms. "You better not bite me," he muttered, half joking. "Come on, Rex." Rex wagged his tail and followed. Back at the campfire, Jake laid the alien girl on a blanket near the flames. He opened his pack and pulled out water, some dried food, and an old med kit. He poured a few drops of water into her mouth. She coughed once, but swallowed. "That's good," Jake said, surprised. "You're not out yet." He looked over her body carefully. The leg was bad, too swollen. He wrapped it the best he could. The cuts on her arms looked deep, but not deadly. He used a clean cloth to stop the bleeding. Rex sat beside the girl, his head resting gently on her side. She stirred again. Then something strange happened. Her hand lifted slowly and touched Rex's fur. A small smile appeared on her lips. Jake blinked. "Well, I'll be damned." She opened her eyes. This time they focused on Jake. Her eyes were big and bright. One was green, the other gold. She tried to speak. "Shh," Jake said, holding up a hand. "Don't talk. You need to rest." She said one word, soft and strange. "Jari." Jake didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. "Okay, Jari." She closed her eyes again and didn't move. Jake leaned back and looked at the sky. What have I gotten myself into? Night passed slowly. The fire cracked and Rex kept guard. Jake stayed awake most of the night, checking the girl's breathing, changing her bandage, and watching for any signs of danger. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know where she came from. But something told him she was important. Very important. In the deep night, the forest went quiet. Too quiet. Suddenly, the girl jerked awake and let out a scream. Her hand glowed. Small metal device in her arm blinked red. Jake stared at it in shock. It looked like a tracker. "Damn," he whispered. "Someone's looking for her." Rex barked once, loud and sharp. Something was coming. Jake's hands shook as he stared at the blinking light inside the alien girl's arm. It was small, red, and pulsing like a warning. "A tracker. Of course," he muttered. "You're not just any runaway." Rex barked again, sharp and alert, pointing his nose toward the trees. Jake quickly grabbed a small metal tool from his backpack and leaned over the girl. The light in her arm blinked faster now. Her body trembled as if sensing the danger too. I don't know who you are, Jake whispered, but I'm not letting anyone take you. With a quick snap, he pressed the tool against the metal. A spark flew and the blinking light died. The girl gasped sharply but didn't wake. Jake exhaled. Tracker's off, he said, glancing at Rex. But that might not stop them. He picked her up again and moved her deeper into the small cave behind his camp. It wasn't much, but it was dry and hidden. He laid her down on thick blankets, then returned to the fire. As he boiled water for soup, Jake kept looking back at the cave entrance. The wind had changed. It smelled of ozone and smoke. Were they coming? He looked at Rex. Think we've got a few hours? Rex didn't answer. He just stared into the dark woods. Jake opened his last can of soup, an old earth mix, thick with beans and dried meat. He poured it into a metal pot and placed it over the fire. As the smell rose, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned fast, hand on his knife. But it was her, the alien girl. She stood there barefoot, wrapped in the human jacket, her eyes glowing softly in the firelight. Her legs shook and she looked like she would fall. Hey! Jake moved quickly and caught her before she hit the ground. You shouldn't be walking. She looked up at him with weak eyes. Then, very softly, she said, Rex? Jake blinked. You know his name? She touched her chest with her hand. Yari, she said, voice thin but clear. Yari, Jake repeated. Is that your name? She nodded once, then looked toward the fire. Hungry? Jake asked, offering a small spoon of soup. She sniffed it first, then took a slow sip. Her eyes widened. Then she snatched the whole bowl with both hands and drank fast. Jake couldn't help but smile. Guess human food isn't so bad after all. Rex wagged his tail and walked up to her, gently pressing his nose into her side. She froze, then reached down and hugged him tight, her strange arms shaking. She whispered something in her own language. Jake didn't understand, but the emotion was clear, gratitude. For the next hour, Jake helped Yari sit beside the fire. He cleaned her wounds again, and this time she didn't flinch. She tried to speak more, but her voice was too weak. Still, she smiled at him. A small, shy smile, but a real one. Jake looked at the stars overhead and sighed. You're not from around here, but I bet someone's coming for you. Yari's face turned pale. Her hands clenched the jacket tighter. Jake nodded. Don't worry, we'll keep you safe, right, Rex? Rex barked once, proud. Suddenly, Yari touched her wrist and showed Jake the broken tracker. She made a motion like something exploding. Jake understood. They're going to search for you harder now. She nodded. Then, to Jake's surprise, she touched the ground with her palm. A faint blue symbol appeared, some kind of alien script, then it faded. What was that? He asked. Yari looked at him and said, They hunt blood. Jake's face hardened. Rex growled again. Far off in the distance, a shadow moved between the trees. They weren't alone anymore. The fire had died to soft embers. The night was cold again. Jake sat with his back against the cave wall, his old rifle resting across his knees. Rex lay beside him, ears twitching. The alien girl, Yari, was asleep, but not peacefully. She tossed and turned, mumbling in her strange language. Suddenly her eyes flew open. She sat up with a sharp breath, glowing sweat on her forehead. No, Koresh, she cried. Jake leaned toward her. Easy, you're safe. But her eyes were wide with fear. Koresh? They coming? Jake frowned. Koresh? What's that? She reached toward the dirt beside her and began drawing. Her fingers moved fast, forming shapes and symbols. A large ship, chains, tall armored figures with burning red eyes. Then, a girl running, and fire. Jake stared at the drawings. They're hunters, aren't they? Yari looked at him with hollow eyes and nodded. They took many, used us. I ran. They chase. Jake swallowed hard, and the tracker was their leash. She touched the scar on her arm where the blinking device had been. Tracker bad. Kill if caught. Jake looked out at the forest entrance. The darkness out there wasn't empty. He could feel it. Later, Yari sat wrapped in a thick blanket near the fire. Jake gave her a warm drink, just boiled water with a pinch of herbs. She sniffed it. This safe? Jake smiled. Safer than Koresh, I bet. That made her laugh. A tiny, tired laugh. Jake leaned forward. You said they used your people. For what? Yari hesitated. Then she pointed to her head. Power. Mind power. But only some have it. They take children, test them, kill, or keep. Jake's heart sank. You were one of them? She nodded. They want weapon. I pretend broken. Then, I run. Jake sat back. He looked at Rex, who had laid his head gently on Yari's lap. She stroked his fur softly, like it brought her peace. Then she turned to Jake and asked, You, name? Jake, he said simply. She pointed at Rex. Dog, brave. Jake chuckled. Yeah, that's Rex. He's saved me more times than I can count. Yari looked at both of them for a long moment, then whispered, Yari, my name is Yari. Jake smiled. Nice to meet you, Yari. She leaned forward and gently placed her hand over Jake's. A strange warmth passed between them. Not romantic, something deeper. A connection. You, not like others, she whispered. Jake looked at her with a soft expression. Neither are you. Suddenly the cave grew colder. The fire dimmed. Rex sat up and growled. Jake grabbed his rifle. From outside, footsteps, heavy ones. Yari gasped and began to panic. They found. Jake quickly moved. Yari, stay down. Rex, stay with her. He stepped outside the cave into the dark woods. A ship hovered far above, barely making noise, but its red lights swept the ground. Jake hid behind a tree and watched. 3 tall, shadowy figures moved through the woods. Koresh. They had no faces, only masks and armor that hissed with steam. They carried rods that crackled with energy. Suddenly one stopped, turned toward the cave. Jake's heart pounded. Then from the cave a bright light flashed. Yari was standing at the entrance. Her hand was glowing. Yari, no, Jake shouted, but she wasn't afraid. The Koresh raised. Their weapons. Rex barked once, then charged. Jake fired a shot. The blast hit one of the hunters in the chest. He fell, but not dead. Yari raised her hands and the ground shook. The hunters stepped back in shock. Yari's voice echoed through the trees. No more running. A blue wave of energy burst from her, knocking the Koresh flat on the ground. Jake ran to her side. You have power. Yari looked at him with glowing eyes. You gave it to me. Smoke rose from the broken ground where Yari's energy had exploded. The forest was no longer quiet. Birds had flown away. Trees creaked as if scared. Jake stood frozen beside her, heart thudding in his chest. Rex growled low, eyes locked on the 3 figures slowly getting back up. The Koresh. Their armor sparked. One of them made a sound like metal grinding against bone. Another raised his rod. It glowed blood red. He stepped forward. Yari's legs shook. The power she released had taken something from her. She swayed. Jake caught her before she fell. You did enough, he whispered. Let me take care of the rest. But the Koresh weren't waiting. They charged. Jake dropped behind a fallen tree and fired. His rifle wasn't built for this kind of enemy, but it was all he had. The first shot hit one of them square in the chest. It staggered, armor dented. The second one leapt over a log, aiming its weapon. And Rex launched. The dog hit the hunter, mid-air, forcing it down with a powerful bite to the neck joint. Sparks flew. The Koresh howled in some mechanical language, trying to throw Rex off. Jake didn't hesitate. He aimed at the exposed gap in the armor and fired again. This time, the hunter fell for good. 1 down, 2 to go. Yari crawled to the side, hiding, behind a tree, clutching her chest. Her energy was gone. She tried to call out, but her voice failed. She could only watch. The second Koresh, larger than the others, moved toward her. Jake noticed too late. "Yari, move!" She couldn't. The hunter raised its rod, but then, a strange high-pitched whistle filled the air. Yari's eyes widened. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small glowing shard. The hunter paused. The shard pulsed once, twice. Boom, a shockwave of light burst out, knocking the creature into a boulder. It didn't get up. Jake looked at her in awe. "You had a grenade this whole time?" Yari smiled weakly. "Not grenade. Memory shard. It broke. My pain turned into power." Jake stared. He didn't understand alien tech, but he understood courage. Only one Koresh remained. This one was different, taller, smarter. It didn't rush. It walked slowly, calmly, like it knew it had already won. Its armor was black and silver, and its helmet had long tusks like a beetle's mandibles. It looked at Yari, then Jake, then Rex, and it spoke, in broken human language. "Give, girl, or die." Jake wiped blood from his cheek and lifted his rifle. "Come take her." The hunter didn't flinch. Yari, still weak, grabbed Jake's arm. "That one, Commander. He killed my sister." Jake's jaw clenched. "Then this is personal." The commander rushed forward, rod swinging. Jake blocked it with the rifle, but the rod shattered it into pieces. Rex jumped again, biting its leg, but the commander kicked him hard. Rex yelped and rolled away, stunned. Jake pulled out his knife. The blade was old, dull, and small compared to the alien's weapon. Still, he didn't back down. The commander slashed and Jake ducked. He stabbed forward, landing a hit under the hunter's arm joint. Sparks flew. The hunter roared. Jake was thrown to the ground. He felt pain in his ribs. He tried to move, but couldn't. "Yo!" Alien raised the rod one last time. Yari screamed, but it never hit, because Rex leapt back in and bit down on the rod, pulling it away. The hunter spun, and Yari stood. Her eyes glowed again. She raised her hands, but this time, it wasn't just energy. It was memories. The hunter froze as visions of its own cruel past were thrown into its mind. Screams, chains, fire, death. It shook its head violently, trying to block it, but Yari stepped closer. "You felt nothing when you hurt us," she said softly. "Now you will feel everything." The hunter collapsed, not dead, but broken. Jake coughed and stood slowly. That was intense. Yari looked at him with tired eyes. "I couldn't do it alone." He smiled and offered his hand. "Good thing you didn't have to." She took it. Behind them, Rex stood up, limping but still strong. He barked once. Jake grinned. "That's my boy." As the sun rose through the trees, the three of them sat quietly, bruised but alive. Yari looked up at the sky. "They won't stop," Jake nodded. "Then we don't stop either." The bodies of the fallen Koresh hunters lay still on the forest floor. Smoke drifted through the trees. Rex limped beside Jake, his fur marked with dust and blood, but his spirit unbroken. Yari sat quietly on a rock, hugging her knees. The firelight flickered against her pale skin and silver hair. She looked stronger now, but only on the outside. Inside, she was shaking. Jake tied a strip of cloth around his bruised ribs and spat out blood. "They were scouts," he said darkly. "That means more are coming." Yari nodded. "They send few first, then the real ones." Jake looked at her. "How long do we have?" She didn't answer. That told him everything. Jake moved fast. He packed food, weapons, supplies. He reinforced the cave, placed traps, rigged alarms. It wasn't much, but it would slow them down. He built a fire pit in the ground, hidden by branches. If they needed to escape, he had an old hoverboard buried beneath dirt. He cleaned it up. Then he checked Rex's wounds. "You good, boy?" Rex barked softly and wagged his tail. "Didn't expect to fight a war this week," Jake muttered. Yari walked up to him holding something in her hand, a small orb glowing blue. "This help," she said. "Energy storage. You use, it listens to feelings." Jake raised an eyebrow. "It listens?" She nodded. "If you protect. It protects." Jake stared at the orb, unsure whether to laugh or believe. He pocketed it anyway. By nightfall, the forest felt wrong again. The wind was too still. Rex growled low. Jake grabbed his new gear and looked at Yari. "Stay behind me." But she shook her head. Not this time. Then came the sound. Drums. Deep. Metallic. Alien. Not from instruments, but from ships landing. The sky above lit up with red lights as a dark transport craft hovered over the trees. Jake gritted his teeth. "They're here." From the forest, armored Koresh warriors emerged, 10 of them, maybe more. They moved like shadows, faster, smarter, meaner than the first wave. Their leader stepped forward, twice the size of the others. His voice echoed like thunder. "Return the girl, or your bones will feed the soil." Jake stepped forward. "Come, get her." The leader raised his hand. The warriors surged forward. Jake's rage exploded. He charged, not with fear, but with fury. He fought like a beast, using every trap he set, every rock, every tree. He moved through the dark like he belonged in it. He grabbed the glowing orb Yari gave him, and it lit up, covering his body in a thin shield of blue energy. Blades bounced off him. A rod of lightning hit his chest, but the orb pulsed, absorbing the strike. He punched a Koresh in the throat and sent him flying. Rex tore into another, dragging it to the ground. Yari raised her hands and sent waves of psychic force that lifted 2 warriors into the air and slammed them down like ragdolls. It was chaos, but it was beautiful. Jake faced the leader one-on-one. The Koresh commander had a 2-headed axe. He swung it at Jake, who blocked with the orb shield. Sparks flew. "You protect her like she is yours," the commander hissed. "She is," Jake growled. "She's mine to protect. You will die for her." Jake grinned. "Then I'll die swinging." The fight was brutal. Every time Jake was knocked down, he stood back up. Every time he was cut, he fought harder. The commander landed a hard blow to his side. Jake screamed, but countered with a punch that cracked the commander's mask. "You, human filth," the alien spat. Jake wiped blood from his mouth. "You have no idea what humans are." Then he pulled a small device from his belt. A hidden charge. "I saved one surprise," Jake whispered. He threw it. The charge exploded in light and flame. The commander screamed, fell to his knees, defeated. The remaining Koresh fled into the trees. Yari ran to Jake, who dropped to one knee, breathing hard. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Because you fight like Starfire." He laughed weakly. Never been called that before. Rex limped beside them and leaned into Jake's side. They were all hurt, but they were still standing. Later that night, they sat together by the fire again. Jake looked at the stars above. "I was just passing through," he said. "Didn't plan on saving alien girls or fighting alien soldiers." Yari leaned her head on his shoulder. "You changed everything," she whispered. Jake looked at her. "No," he said. "You did." The valley below was covered in morning mist, like a sea of clouds hiding secrets. Somewhere beneath that fog, children like Yari were imprisoned, forgotten weapons waiting in the dark. Jake stood at the cliff's edge, his rifle across his back, the glowing orb tied to his wrist. Beside him, Yari stood tall, no longer shaking or hiding. She wore a cloak over her shoulders, once torn, now stitched with hope, and Rex, ever faithful, stood between them, eyes sharp, tail still. "You really want to do this?" Jake asked, watching her face. I have to, Yari whispered. They'll never stop hunting me. But maybe, if I break the cage for others, they'll stop running too. Jake gave a small nod. Then we do it together. They made their way through the trees, following hidden trails and ancient markers only Yari recognized. The deeper they went, the more silent the world became. Even birds avoided this place. Soon, they stood before a rock wall covered in moss. This is it, Yari said softly. She placed her hand on the stone. It shimmered and slowly opened. A hidden door. Jake raised his eyebrows. You never said you had magic keys. Yari smiled faintly. I never had a reason to use them before. The tunnels were cold and narrow, glowing faintly with alien light. Strange symbols pulsed on the walls. Machines hummed behind steel doors. Jake kept his rifle ready, eyes scanning every corner. They passed cages. Empty. Burnt. But then they reached the chamber. A large glass room filled with small figures, children, alien children, like Yari. Most were asleep. Some were awake, but their eyes were hollow. No hope, no life. Yari stepped forward, her voice trembling. I know these faces. Soft voice from behind the glass spoke. Yari? A small boy stood up, pressing his hand against the glass. Is it really you? Tears filled her eyes. Yes, it's me. Jake stepped beside her. Let's get them out. The control panel was ancient and alien. Yari placed her hand. On it, and the system lit up. Lights flickered, doors hissed. Then, alarms. Jake cursed. They know we're here. Metal doors slammed open. Koresh soldiers stormed in, twice as many as before. Jake lifted his rifle. Rex growled. Yari didn't move. Instead, she closed her eyes. The orb on Jake's wrist lit up again. A warm pulse. Then Yari's entire body glowed. Not blue, not red, golden. She stepped forward, raised her arms, and the entire room filled with light. The Koresh stopped moving. They shook, confused, then collapsed. Not dead, but silent. Yari's voice echoed through the chamber. Not loud but powerful. You broke us, used us. Now we rise. The glass shattered, not with violence but with energy. The children stepped out, blinking in confusion. Jake stared at her in awe. What did you do? Yari looked at him. I didn't destroy. I unlinked their minds. The Koresh used control signals to bind us. I reversed it. Jake laughed. You're not a weapon. She smiled. I'm a beginning. Hours later, the sun was high. The children were free, fed, and wrapped in warm cloaks. Jake sat with Rex by a fire outside the valley. The nightmare was over. Yari sat beside him, a peaceful look on her face. I promised you a gift, she said suddenly. Jake raised an eyebrow. What? More alien grenades? She shook her head. No, something better. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a silver pendant. It shimmered with soft light. What's this? It's called a bond token, Yari said. It's only given once in a lifetime. It means you changed someone forever. She gently placed it in his hand. You saved me. You gave me a reason to live. This is my way of saying I will always carry you in my soul. Jake didn't know what to say. Rex licked Yari's hand gently like he understood. She laughed. Later, as stars filled the sky again, one of the children asked, Where will we go now? Yari looked at Jake. Jake looked at the stars. Someplace, safe, he said. Someplace you can be more than what they made you. Yari stood up and faced the children. You are not weapons. You are not broken. You are free. The children cheered. As they walked into the night, Jake, Rex, Yari, and the freed young ones, the sky above shimmered with falling stardust. No one noticed a hidden Koresh ship far behind them, watching, recording, plotting. But for now, they were free, and hope had a name. Yari,